looked at our operating cost for the water system. And I looked at the predictions that we did, and in our rate study that was done in 2003, we broke the actual O&M costs into three categories. And they were the variable categories that would be for power and chemicals and so on, and the amount of money that was spent on the distribution system for labor and gas for the trucks, that kind of thing, and for city administration to do the billing. And as you can see, with the water treatment plant, our operation and maintenance cost for the water system is about $225,000 a year. Now that was based upon last year's pumpage, and I then went and looked at what would that cost be if we just put it onto the core facilities. Now the production doesn't change because the production is all in the core facilities. The well is in the core facilities, the water treatment is in the core facilities. What does change is the amount of monies that are spent on the distribution system. We would not think it appropriate that the village pay for distribution system to get to the east side of Rush Creek or anything like that. So I took basically the annual costs of the whole system versus the core system, and I divided that distribution cost from $108,000 back down to about $90,000. The $88,900 is what's attributable to the core facilities based upon dollar value. For administration, for billing, for people, I basically discounted that entirely, and I said that we would probably send them a bill 4 times a year or monthly or however you want to handle it, but it shouldn't take more than $500 to do that. On the variable and the fixed cost part, I basically multiplied what we were paying in the city of Rushford by the 14.25%, which is again the 5.7 million gallons, which would be their maximum demand, versus our 40 million gallons, which we pump for our use. And I get to the point where the proportional cost to the village then would add up to about $22,000. And Mr. Mayor, I see that you then have the two numbers that you need to make a decision as to how to negotiate a water rate study or rate charge system with the village, in that you know now what your annual cost is by the capital portion of the system, which is about $19,000, and the operating part, which is $22,000. This is on page number 5, those numbers that are shown there. And I think that's the answer to the questions that you were asking for on where to go.
In regards to the infrastructure and things, the village also has a reservoir, a functional reservoir.
Correct.
The consideration would have been, I believe, that we would maintain the reservoir and rather pump, whether it be off-peak times and or whenever it was that it made sense. We don't keep our reservoir full either.
Sure.
But that the reservoir would be the the device. So if we pumped it based on the size of a line, and how many gallons you can pump in a 4-inch line in a 24-hour period, or in X number of hours to make it fit into the city's plant, would you really need to go to a bigger facility? I mean, a bigger line or a bigger meter, because if you can pump when either demand is low or just pump at a constant rate.
Here's what my thought was on that. There was the talk in the meter size. We in the city can supply all of your needs up to probably 125% of your 5.7 million gallons. So we could take you up to maybe 7.3 million gallons if you wanted to go that high. Or we could go all the way down where we would basically give you enough water that you could blend to meet the radium requirements. And I would see that the percentage that I used here would vary based upon what you would buy. So if you used less water and blended it yourself, I would see there would be a good argument to reduce the variable cost proportion there. Similarly with the capital cost, what I would say to you is that the city also has extra capacity in those lines. You know, if I was a resident in the city of Rushford, I would say, well, you know, they've got a 10-inch water main outside of my house, but all I really need is a 1-inch pipe. But yet, as a city resident, I have to pay my share of that 10-inch.
I'm not debating the
No.
fact of the cost of the line. The line needs to be what it is. But if you don't need a 10-inch line
Right.
with a meter, because the volume is, in the 4-inch line is sufficient.
Sure, and I guess I'm not telling you what the answer is.
Right.
All I'm doing is giving you the options. If you go with a smaller line, I would say that the meter would be smaller and your cost would be smaller because your flow would be smaller. You know, rather than using 5.7 million gallons to get to the column on the right-hand side, you might use a smaller line, which would take you down to a blending rate of maybe 3 million gallons a year. Do you recall what your radium concentration was?
Yeah, I think, well, a 50-50 blend would easily do
Yeah.
it.
So a 50-50 blend would suggest if we have a water with a radium concentration of about 1 milligram per liter, 1 part per million, and you have maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah, really between 7, 8 to 9.
Yeah, so you could blend half of your water
Right.
and meet the health department requirements. That would mean that you'd have to build a line all the way from the last hydrant all the way up to your water tower. And you got to do that analysis for yourself, you know, figure out whether it's better to build that line all the way to the water tower or buy all of your water from Rushford. I don't think it's my job to tell you what to do there.
No. And if we were to not build the line all the way to the water tower, you're saying that the water tower would become non-used?
You could choose for yourself whether you
Because
use
it's
it.
fire protection for the south side. I mean,
Yes.
so rather than putting an 8-inch line for fire protection, we have a reservoir.
Right. I would, in my professional opinion, and I've got 30 years behind me, I would say that you'd be better off keeping the water tower than getting rid of it. Because I think your fire insurance rates would go up without a water tower. Especially if you only put a 4-inch connection in between the South Village.
Well, and that would be the thing. If we
Right.
used the tower, you could get by with a lot smaller
Mhm.
line. If you needed for fire protection,
Yeah.
you'd have to, you know, go to the next level. And I guess I would like, you know, just to have a comment from Jim then in regards to.
Yeah, we did look at that. This is the preliminary numbers we came up with in using the existing tower. Well, I guess in either case, you'd want probably an 8-inch supplying, if you had full service from the city. You could drop that down to a smaller pipeline if you're only using it for blending. The blending option, my theory behind that is to do that correctly and to guarantee you're getting a 50-50 blend, you would put in a small lift pump at your well house. You would have to run a line from the city to your current well house, install a pump in that system that would guarantee you a split flow, and that's how I would recommend you do it. But in either case, a 6-inch line would get you a blending, and an 8-inch would get you full service.
And I don't mean to stand here tonight